Hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of my Mage Knight video review. Now this is normally where I usually show you some gameplay for the game in question. I'm definitely going to be doing that here, but I'm also going to do a little bit more rule clarification from the first video. Unfortunately, the first video, the tutorial video, ran extremely long, and I was trying to keep track of how long the videos are running, and that one was definitely running very long. So I kind of tried to concentrate on just the major concepts for the game. Not only that, Mage Knight is definitely one of those games that has a lot of minor rules and a lot of minor details, and that's why a lot of people say the game is so hard to learn, because it's got so many minor details that when you're learning how to play the game, they can be very hard to remember. The cool thing about Mage Knight is, just like all of a lot of games, all those little details and all those extra rules make a heck of a lot of thematic sense, and once you know how to play Mage Knight, you can look back at every single one of those rules and realize that they all made sense in the context of the game. And the game makes sense. You're not going to have any problem with playing it at all because it does make sense. The problem is just learning those minor rules, learning those minor details are just going to be an exercise in frustration and drive you crazy because, let's face it, the first couple times you play Mage Knight, you're going to forget a couple rules. You're going to forget some details. It's just a fact of life. Don't stress over it, but this is why with the second video, I'm going to do a little bit more of actual tutorial versus straight out gameplay. Now, of course, I'm going to do the gameplay because that's what I always do with my second video, but I'm also going to explain everything while I'm doing it, and hopefully I'm going to give it enough of a thematic reason so when I'm doing this, the theme will click in and everything will make more sense to you by throwing the theme in there so you can see the thematic reasons for those rules, and they'll start making a heck of a lot more sense for you. So hopefully the game will click for you the very first time you play it. And since I'm carrying this over from the original tutorial video, that just also means I'm going to be using the Blitz Conquest scenario, which requires you, since we're going to be doing this with 2 players, which means I'm going to be controlling 2 Mage Knights. Should be pretty interesting from that aspect since I'm playing the Blitz Conquest, not the Blitz Cooperative. But it's still going to be fun for me, and at least I can show you all the gameplay mechanics. So for Blitz Conquest, we're going to use 2 city tiles, since we're playing a 2-player game. And if you get confused, this is all explained to you in the setup for the Blitz Conquest. We're going to use 1 non-city brownback tile, so we're going to have a total of 3 of the brownback tiles, and we're going to have 2 cities involved in this. The very first city we discover is going to come across as a level 5. The second city we're going to discover is going to come across as a level 8. So it's actually a pretty tough scenario, but the really cool thing about it is it's one of the faster playing scenarios. It allows people to evolve and level up a lot quicker so they get into the gameplay, and one of the things I really like about this scenario. And I'm going to stop myself just really quick because I just remembered the Blitz Cooperative is level 5 and level 8 for the cities. Since I'm actually doing the Blitz Conquest, all the cities are going to be level 3. The objective of this is to discover the 2 cities before the end of the second night. And if the players manage to do that, we're going to figure out the scores. Whoever has the highest score is going to be the winner and the ultimate Mage Knight. Also, don't forget, when I'm done with this series for the Mage Knight, I'm actually going to do a 4th video for Mage Knight, and in that 4th video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how Mage Knight plays as a solo game, which means I'm going to teach you how to play the dummy player, show you how the mechanics work for that, and then I'm going to pull out one of the scenarios for a solo game, and I'm going to show you some gameplay for the solo game, because I know a lot of people have been asking about how does Mage Knight play as a solo game, and I'm going to go ahead and show people that so they learn Mage Knight and decide if it's a really good game for them as a solo game, or that's all they really want out of Mage Knight, the board game. Now for this video specifically, I decided in advance that I'm going to play Goldix, and I'm also going to pick Arithia. Now the reason why I'm picking these 2 Mage Knights is because I think they're going to be the biggest variety of Mage Knights. Arithia is really cool because, unlike the rest of the Mage Knights, she actually likes getting wounded, so her gameplay strategy is going to be a lot different than any other of the Mage Knights, because if you get a couple wounds in your hand, if you get the right special abilities for her, she can actually use those wounds to do some extra things and make her a little more powerful, which is a little bit different. And it just shows you how the different Mage Knights play, and Goldix is pretty cool. He's actually one of my personal favorite Mage Knights. I like the fact that he is one of the best Mage Knights when it comes to using the mana and the magic in the game. So he's my personal favorite, so whenever I play the game, I'm always trying to play Goldix. If I'm not able to get Goldix, my second favorite is actually the Elf, because I like the fact that he is really good at being the guy who controls the most units. He gets a few extra special powers and 1 special card that gives him an advantage at hiring units. So his thing is that he's better at getting units than the other players. So he's my second favorite. But again, Goldix is my favorite, so I'm picking him. And I'm also picking Arithia just to show you how the gameplay works. Now I said I'm picking the Blitz Conquest scenario, and I also said that the reason why I like the Blitz Conquest is because it is one of the better ones to teach the game. And the reason why I say that is because it's an accelerated scenario. Now in the normal game, when you're playing, anytime you're playing Mage Knight, the board game, the offer is always going to have number of players or number of Mage Knights plus 2. That's how many mana dice you're going to get. It's also going to be amount of players plus 2 for the amount of units you're going to have in the unit offer. So if you ever forget, it's always dice plus 2, or amount of Mage Knights plus 2 for the dice, and amount of players plus 2 for the amount of units you're going to add in the offer. Now back on the point I was trying to make, the reason why I really like the Blitz Conquest is because the Blitz Conquest, and again we're playing a 2-player game, not to segue again, so I'm putting out 4 units in the unit offer. But with the Blitz Conquest, you're going to have a little bit of an accelerated start. Now the cool thing about this is that means that players are going to start with more mana, they're going to start with more reputation, they're also going to start with more fame, and when they level up they're also going to get bonus fame. So basically this Blitz Conquest not only is only play in 4 rounds versus 6, which some of the other scenarios do, so it plays faster. The players are going to level up faster, get cards faster, and have everything happen a lot more quicker. So they get a more overall broader feel for the game and see if it's a game they really like, and they get in a quicker package versus some of those longer scenarios, which can seem to take a long time, especially when you're trying to teach the game to new players. Now, of course, I said a couple times in the first video that I can teach this game to any player in about 20 minutes. And I can, because I've done it before. I've done it multiple times. And the reason why I've done that is because I can play with those players. I can cover all the small, little, minute details in Mage Knight that cause all the headaches. The little small details such as the fact that no player can ever have more than 3 crystals in their inventory, but you can have an unlimited amount of tokens. Small details like that are kind of confusing new players. That's one of those small things you always forget. Small details such as the difference between fire attack and fire resistance, the fact that one blocks cold and the other one blocks fire, which can seem a little bit odd. Until you understand how it thematically works, it kind of seems odd, but thematically it works and makes a lot of sense once you understand the thematic behind it. Also, the thematic reasons why people are losing reputation when they're going and attacking these castles, or these keeps, these cities, when they're attacking these mage towers. And the reason why you're losing reputation is because these are the locals. These are the people who live here. You're an invader in this game, whether you like it or not. You've been sent out here by the Council of the Void, and the Council of the Void, they're not really nice people. They're conquerors. They're kind of basically the unknown bad guy who just likes to go out there and say, hey, cool planet, guess what? We own it now. So you're conquering this planet, so when you come in and knock down the door of a mage tower and say, guess what? I now own your mage tower, it ticks off the people, and that's why you lose reputation. Even though there's some strange guardians guarding these towers, it's the guardians and the people who live in this land. You're attacking them. And that's the thematic reason why the reputation goes down. But people sometimes forget those little minor details that attacking these places causes your reputation track to go down. So, like I said, game is easy to teach. There's only a couple different sources of buying power. You got your movement, you got your combat, you got your reputation or your influence for buying things with your influence. So those things aren't really that hard to remember. It's just going to be, like I said multiple times, those really, really small details that are just so easy to forget. And that's one of the most annoying things about learning how to play Mage Knight, is just remembering all those little, small, minute details. So if you have somebody like me who knows how to play Mage Knight really well, to the point where I don't need to look at the rule books, I don't need to look at these cards here, but I am going to be playing them out so you guys can see how they work. Because when you're learning the game, you want these cards out because they make the game a heck of a lot easier to learn. But if you play with the game with somebody like me who has all these rules memorized and can play the game without looking in the rule book, can play the game without looking up various things, the game is really simple. And it's not that hard to teach when you're playing it that way. And also, the nice thing is if you play with somebody who knows how to play Mage Knight, the game is actually pretty darn quick to set up. Of course, I'm deliberating a little bit because I'm trying to make sure I have enough room for you to see everything. And I'm learning that I'm going to run out a little bit of room. So some things are going to have to be off camera, but oh well, you'll still get the idea of how the game plays. I'm definitely going to show you everything. And when I'm playing stuff off camera, I'm going to definitely make sure I reference so you know what the heck is exactly going on. So there shouldn't be any problems with that at all. So as I was saying earlier, the Blitz Conquest, the reason why I like it is it's a little bit accelerated. The things that are going to be accelerated about the Blitz Conquest is, instead of only starting with number of Mage Knights plus 2 for the mana source, you're going to actually get 1 extra die in the mana source, which is really cool. You're going to get 1 more unit in the unit offer. Again, accelerated, it's really nice. The players are going to start with level 2 on the reputation, which means they are already at +1 on their influence when they're trying to influence people. So they're going to get units a heck of a lot quicker. And we also all start with 1 fame or 1 experience point. I'm going to use that word because I know at least a dozen times during this video I'm going to refer to it as experience points. For some reason the word fame just doesn't want to stick in my head unless I want to think about the 1980s TV show Full of Dancing. So, back on point, when you gain a level on the fame track, every time you go up a level you're going to get 1 free fame, which is going to be really nice. So again, that's all part of that accelerated leveling process, which is why I really like the Blitz Conquest. Almost have the game completely set up. Once it's set up, we're going to shuffle the decks, and we're actually just going to go ahead and get into things. I'm just going to explain it to you as we go. And we're just about ready to start playing Mage Knight, the board game. Once you got the map built, and remember when you're putting these map tiles together, you have to match the symbols, so you're going to form either a star or a circle. You also have to pay attention that you're following the rules for whatever map you're choosing, whether it's a wedge formation or open map or whatever it is. There's a picture in the rule books and it'll show you exactly the limits on how you can build the map. So they want to make sure you're not building out basically into the ocean. And since we're playing a wedge formation, it's basically going to look like a pie shape as we're going. There's going to be 2 tiles, 3 tiles, 4 tiles, 5 tiles wide. But if you forget, again, there's a picture of the map in the rule book. So once we have our map built, what we need to do is we need to look at every single location on the revealed tiles, find the matching cards for those, and they're going to tell you exactly what you need to do for every one of those locations so you set them up properly. And it's also going to make sure you don't forget what kind of rules specifically apply to those locations. So if we look at the map, we're going to see we have a Mage's Tower, we're going to have a keep, we have a location for marauding orcs, we happen to have a white crystal mine, we have a village, and of course we have the entry tile where we enter the land. So we take this however we want to do it, just to make it simple. Let's just go ahead and start with this tile right here. First thing we need to do is we need to figure out what kind of marauding creature we're fighting. So now the symbol of the marauding matches the back symbol on the marauding tile, so we know exactly what kind of creature we need to take to fill up this marauding slot. So you have a scimitar on the back, so we know we need to grab a scimitar creature. And if we look at the marauding location, we're going to see that we're going to reveal this creature face up. Now the thematic reason why we're revealing this creature face up is this is basically a creature not part of the populace of this planet, this world, whatever you want to call it. This is a marauding creature which is making life a living heck for all the people of this land. It's basically pillaging and raging across this land, so everybody knows about it because everybody's saying things like, yep, the orcs are waging war across the hills out there to the east of the Wizard's Tower. So this is why this tile is revealed face up. That's the logical reason for it, so you don't forget. And that's also the reason why when we defeat this person, we're going to gain 1 level on the reputation track, because the people of this land are going to rejoice that we're saving them from this menace that's terrorizing their landscape. The next thing we're going to have is we're going to have a Mage Tower. Now remember, the symbol here matches the exact same symbol on the back of the Mage Tower to show you exactly who's guarding the Mage Tower. And we're going to place this on top of the Mage Tower, and that's going to be the Guardian. Now it's not a monster inside the Mage Tower. This is a resident of the land. This is somebody who lives in these lands, and they're respected and hopefully liked in these lands, unless they're the evil necromancer, but maybe that's a future expansion, I don't know. Anyways, this guy will be placed face down. Now the reason why you're going to be placing this face down thematically is because this person lives in this tower. Nobody's complaining about the wizard or the golem or whatever it is in the Wizard's Tower, because everybody loves them and they don't want you to come trouncing through the land and obliterate and slaughter this person. So they're not going to exactly tell you who's living in the keep, because they don't want you getting bright ideas. And the only way we're going to find out who is in that tower is if we go next to the tower and peer in. And it helps, think about Monty Python, the quest for the Holy Grail. They never knew the French were in the tower until they got close and started getting taunted. That's the same thing. We're not going to see who's in that tower until we get next to that location. Flip that tile over during the daytime. And matter of fact, if it's nighttime, we're not even going to get taunted. We won't even know who's guarding that Mage Tower until we actually walk through the front door. And everything I said for the Mage Tower goes exactly the same for the keep. This is somebody who lives in the land, somebody who's hopefully respected in the land, and they don't want you getting any bright ideas, because when an invader comes into a land, the last thing people do is tell them exactly who's garrisoning what, because they don't want their friends, families, compatriots slaughtered by the invaders. So again, we have no idea who's inside that keep. We're not going to find unless we go next door during the day. And if we go barging through the door, knocking it down and saying, hello, we're here, the people of the land are not going to like us because they're going to realize that we're just probably more of a scourge, probably no better than these marauding orcs attacking these lands. And then the final location we have are the two villages, and if you want to think about this thematically and try to remember exactly how these work, think of the typical dungeon fantasy adventure where after the adventure the heroes go back to town to recuperate, to heal, maybe to replace a lost party member, so maybe they're going to hire somebody to join their party, or if they need to, they may just want to bash a couple of heads in to try to get their point across, but of course then the people in that village aren't going to like them anymore, so that's basically the same thing with Mage Knight. I can go to the village, I can heal, I can hire some people, and of course I can smash in a couple of heads, but they're not going to like me that much, but maybe I'll get a little more intel or maybe a little bit of things to back me up, and that's thematically, I'm just going to draw a couple extra cards from my hand. There's only 3 things left to do, and we can go ahead and start the game. First, we need to make sure that the mana dice that we rolled in the source, at least half of the dice have to be non-black or gold mana. If we don't have that, we keep rolling the black and gold mana until we get at least half of them being the non-black or gold. And then since this is daytime, black mana dice are going to be totally worthless unless we play an ability that allows us to re-roll that die. So we're basically going to have 4 mana. Gold mana is a wild card. If anybody takes this gold mana, they can use it for any colored mana except for black mana. Now every player needs to draw their card of, or their hand of 5 cards, and then each player needs to pick out which kind of tactics they're going to use. And remember, we're going to pick tactics based on reversed order that we picked our Mage Knights. And just for simplicity, we're going to say whoever played Goldix placed first, or picked first, and whoever picked Arithia picked second. So the Arithia player gets to pick the tactic card first, and whatever remaining tactic cards left over, Goldix can fan through and choose that as their tactic card for the very first round, the day round of the game. After the players draw their hands of exactly 5 cards, and again, if you forget how many cards you start with, remember every single player with their top token shown for level 2 shows that each player starts with exactly 5 cards. Once that's done, Arithia gets to pick her tactic card first, and she's going to go ahead and get Great Start because the cards she drew in her hand weren't the best that she wanted to start with. So Great Start's going to give her an extra 2 cards to draw and add to her hand, so she's going to take those right now, just for simplicity. And then Goldix is going to take Mana Steal, which allows them to take one of the dice from the source, and they get to permanently keep that dice until they decide to spend it. Once they spend it, it's going to be re-rolled and added to the source. The cool thing is, though, the rules specifically say a player can only take 1 die from the source to use on each one of their turns. This die is not being taken from the source, so Goldix technically at the start of the game, at any one of their turns, could use 2 dice in 1 round to give them some extra powers. And remember, Goldix really loves using these spells because they're really good. That's their kind of their bonus as the Goldix player. So now both the players got their tactic cards. We need to rearrange the player order based on whoever has the lowest tactic card. Goldix has a tactic card, which is the number 3. Arithia has the number 5 tactic card, so that means Goldix is now going to be player number 1. And Arithia is going to be player 2, and we're going to go ahead and start with Goldix's turn. And the very thing Goldix is going to do is he's going to go ahead and enter the world and figure out exactly what he wants to do on his turn. And it looks like it's going to be pretty easy to guess what we're going to do first because we got some really good cards. We got a really good ability, and we're going to go ahead and get some experience really quick and start leveling up because that's what we want to do. First thing we're going to do as a Goldix player, since we got a really nice hand that gives us some attack, we got a hand that's going to give us some attack. Card that can give us a lot of things. A wild card to discard if we want to discard or to power improvisation. And we got a little bit of moves, so we're doing actually pretty much okay for our very first starting hand. First thing the Goldix player is going to do is they're going to take the gold mana from the source, and they're going to use this gold mana as a blue mana, and I'm just going to turn it to blue mana just for easy memory so you see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to use that blue mana to power the stamina card, so stamina card has now been played. I now have 4 movement points. 2 movement points, 2 movement points, 3 movement points for those locations I moved to. I'm going to spend 3 of my 4 movement points to move into the forest. I have 1 movement point left, but it's going to be immediately wasted because instead of doing anything else, I have done my move, and now remember we do move and then action, so my move was to move in the forest. Now my action is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attack these orc diggers. And the cool thing is, again, as I said before, everything about this game matches thematically. These are orc diggers. They like to dig in the ground, so things that dig in the ground like to be fortified. So if you ever forget, the orc diggers just happen to be fortified, meaning my range attacks are going to be totally useless against this creature unless I have some siege attacks, which I definitely do not have in the beginning of the game. Now remember, the way combat works is the first thing we do is we do range combat. So since this creature is fortified, we'd have to have some siege attacks. Looking at our cards, we have no siege attacks at all, so we don't have to worry about this. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to have to block this creature. Now if we look at this creature, we see that he has 3 attack, no special abilities like brutality that we really need to worry about, no swift attack or anything that's going to make him harder to block. So all we need to do is we need to come up with 3 block to stop his attacks. Now I can stop his attack 2 ways. I can discard both of these cards for a total of 4 block, which will leave me these 2 cards to play with if I want, or I can do the exact opposite and play improvisation for 3 block, and it requires me to discard one card to power it. So I'm going to go ahead and discard both of these cards right here for a total of 3 block, which is more than enough to stop this creature's 3 attack. Remember, it's a 3 attack creature. I came up with 3 block, so I'm taking no damage. So we're going to skip phase 3 of the attack round, which is where the creature would do damage to me if I didn't block it. Since I blocked it, we're going to move immediately to the 4th phase of combat, where I get to attack that creature with any attacks. Now remember, when you get to this point, you can use any attacks that you want: siege attacks, range attacks, or standard attacks. So now we're going to have our 2 cards left over, our 2 rage cards that we can play for attack or block of 2. This creature only has 3 defense, so we're going to play attack 2 plus attack 2 is a total of 4 attack. We have spent all 5 of our cards. Put those in the discard pile really quick for our Goldix hero. This creature has been defeated. I always like to put creatures on the board because we want to process our level ups on the other player's turn, so we're not slowing down the game. So I always place them here so I remember that while the other players are going, I can process my level ups if any happen. So this is just something I like to do when I play Mage Knight, the board game. Now the way this would normally work is if I was playing with other players, the first thing I would do is I'd re-roll the mana die and return it to the source, and then look at the next player in line and say, you can start your turn, and I'm going to start doing everything I need to do, such as my end of turns phases. Now since I'm not going to be playing with 2 hands, 4 heads, and trying to do some really cool telekinetic powers, which I don't possess any of them, unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and process this the way it would look from that player's standpoint. So now the Goldix player has already told the other player to start their turn, which is what you normally do. So we're going to go ahead and process our end of phase stuff. The first thing we do is we're going to discard our cards because they're burned up. And then we're going to process any leveling up or anything we may have. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we have a correct level up token. We're going to see that we're going to gain 2 fame from defeating this Orc Digger. So we're going to go from 1 fame to 3 fame. And since we're playing Blitz Conquest, every time we cross one of these lines, we get 1 fame for free. So now we have 4 fame. Since we defeated an Orc type creature Marauder, we look over here to remind us that we're going to gain 1 point of reputation. So we're now up 1 more level on the reputation track, which is going to be good if we want to start hiring. We're now at +1, or we're still at +1, but it's going to give us a bonus if we want to do any hiring in any villages or anything. And now that we've done that, we got to see what else we're going to do for our level up process. So we look over here and we're going to see that we get to pick 1 card from the advanced action offer, and then we get to decide which one of 2 abilities we're going to go ahead and keep for Goldix. So we're going to look at what we drew. We're going to look at our special abilities chart to figure out exactly what these abilities do. And then we're going to pick one of those abilities that's going to be permanently a new special ability for us, and the other one's going to be discarded to the community pile that the Arithia character, can purchase at a later turn, possibly if she decides to do. Unfortunately, Goldix did have a very tough decision between the 2 powers that we chose, and I did that really quickly because I know what I want this early in the game. The powers I have is that one that's going to be a permanent, can use once per turn ability to add 1 siege or 1 ice siege, and that's going to be usable every single turn, which is actually pretty darn powerful. The other one is an ability that's only usable once per round, but allows you to move 1 space for no movement cost, or I move across 2 spaces without getting the attention of any other monsters if I move by them for the cost of 2 move. And that goes for any single terrain type. It's basically unlimited fly, and that makes sense since he's got wings. So it's a really tough decision because I'd actually like to have both of these powers. But I picked the one I picked because I like the free movement usable once per round, and it's the one I'm going to stick with. Now I need to go ahead and pick a card from the advanced offer. And remember, when you take a card from the advanced offer, or from the spell offer, or from an artifact, it goes to the top of your draw pile, your top of your D deck, which means you're going to draw that immediately into your hand when you redraw your hand. You refill the advanced action offer since we took a card out. Remember, the advanced action offer, the spell offer, always refill whenever you take a card out. The unit offer does not refill until a new round starts. So now that we've got our level up fully processed, we figure out exactly what we're going to do. We just need to draw our hand up. Now remember, we get 5 cards, and we know what one of those 5 cards is going to be because it's the advanced action card we just purchased from the advanced action offer, so we know exactly what that's going to be. Then we look at the rest of our cards, and we can start planning exactly what we want to be doing with our next turn, and we'll be doing that while the other player is taking their turn. Now that's the end of Goldix's turn completely, and now Arythea gets to decide exactly what she wants to do. And the first thing she needs to do is she needs to enter the world through the portal and figure out exactly what she wants to do by looking at the 7 cards she has. Now remember, she starts with 7 cards because she used the Great Start Tactic card is the one she picked. So she starts with 7 cards, and now she needs to figure out exactly what her strategy is going to be for the round. Or, I'm sorry, for the turn. The first thing Arythea is going to do is they're going to play the move, or the movement card, Stamina, which is going to give them 2 movement. They could grab the gold die and make it a blue mana crystal, or I'm sorry, a blue mana from the source, and get 4 movement, but we have plenty of movement cards. We pretty much drew almost a whole hand of movement cards. So we're not going to waste the mana for that. We're actually going to go work on hiring somebody to join our force so we can become a little bit more powerful in that aspect. So we're going to spend a movement 2 to move into this grasslands, which takes 2 movement points to move into. We're going to need another 2 movement to move into the village. And then once we're in the village, we're going to end our movement, and we're going to go ahead and take our action. Now our action is we're going to hire somebody. We can only hire 2 people. We can hire the peasants, or we can hire the herbalist. Now technically we have enough influence to hire both of them, but unfortunately we can only command 1 unit because we're only first level and we only have 1 command token, so it'd be a waste to hire both. So we need to figure out which one of these 2 we want to hire, and we know these are the only 2 available to be hired because their symbol on their hiring banner matches the symbol for villages, and we're in a village, so we know we can only hire these 2 guys, as opposed to these other guys can only be hired in monasteries, keeps, or the Wizard's Tower. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the gold mana die, and we're going to be using this for the red mana for it. We're going to play the improvisation card, which says if we play it and discard an additional card on top of it, we can get 5 points of movement, 5 points of influence, 5 points of attack, or 5 points of block. We're going to use it for the 5 points of influence, and we're going to go and hire the peasants. So we now have 1 unit hired by Arythea. We have 1 point of influence left over. And we know that because the peasants cost 4 influence to hire, and we got a total of 5 due to our card play. We still have 3 cards left in our hand. We're going to go ahead and save these. We're going to end our turn right there. We're happy with our results because remember, it's movement and then action. We did a movement. We did an action. We're done with our turn. We don't have any level ups to process. We're going to return the die to the source after we roll it. Then we're going to let the other player know that they can take their turn. We're going to process any level ups, which we don't have, so we're just going to simply draw all the way back up to a total hand size of 5. So we're only drawing 2 cards since we already have 3 cards left in our hand, and that ends the Arythea player's turn. It's now back to the Goldix player's turn, and what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and spend their special ability right now, which allows them to fly, so it's used up for the entire round, and we cannot use it anymore until the next round when the special ability resets. And now we need to process or get some movement because we actually want to move 2 spaces. And remember, using the special ability costs us 2 movement if we want to move up to 2 spaces. So we're going to spend March, and we're also going to empower it with 1 die from the source that's going to give us a total of 4 movement points. So 2 of those 4 movement points are going to allow us to move 2 spaces, because remember, our special ability allows us to ignore the movement cost for spaces, and all we have to do is spend 0 to move 1 space, or 2 movement to move 2 spaces, and we still have 2 movement points left over. So what we're going to do with those 2 remaining movement points is we're going to go ahead and reveal the next tile and figure out exactly what we're going to encounter. Remember, we need to line this tile up so the numbers are facing the same direction as the numbers and the letter for the starting tile, and circles form the circles, stars form the stars, and we figure out exactly what we're going to encounter by processing the next tile And not only that, we have the nice bonus now of the fact that since we're standing next to this place and it's daytime, we're going to reveal exactly what is guarding that location, and we can decide if we want to attack it. Since we're standing next to this mage tower, we're going to figure out exactly what's attacking that mage tower. And then finally, since we have a keep on this location, we're going to put a keep guardian, or I'm sorry, a keep resident down at this location, and we don't know exactly who it is until we go into that space and decide if we want to attack that location or not. We've also revealed a new terrain type. We have now revealed the dungeon location. Dungeons are pretty cool. No monsters are revealed there until we actually decide to go onto the space and then to consciously make a decision to enter the dungeon, delve into its depths, and attack whatever's guardian. And it's always going to be a draconum kind of creature. Basically a dragon guarding the treasure. Typical dungeon stuff. It fits the theme again. But if we manage to go down there, we're going to be able to get possibly maybe some magical spells, because we're going to find some scrolls in the dragon's hoard, or maybe an artifact in the dragon's hoard. So it may be worth it for us to go in there and try to take that location. And not only that, don't forget, locations that we conquer at the end of the game are going to be worth some extra fame towards that victory type location. Now, looking at what we revealed, we're not really liking our odds. Now, the interesting thing about movement in Mage Knight, entering a city is always 2 movement points, so you don't look at the terrain, the type the city is on when you reveal the terrain tile. It's always 2 movement points to enter the city. And the logic is if you look at the cities are extremely huge. They take up the entire hex, and if you want to think about it, where the city is, it is a city, so it's going to be developed and everything like that, so people can move freely in there. They're not going to have restricted movement. These keeps and these mage towers are way off, hidden in the mountains, back in these mountain spaces, so you have to actually lay siege to these locations. And the reason why they're off in the mountains is because, well, people build mage towers off of the mountains so they don't get bothered by the common folk. And keeps are usually smaller buildings, so they don't take up a grand hex. So if we want to move into this mage tower and assault it, we need to process enough movement to actually enter a mountain space, so we're going to need at least 3 movement. To enter this location, we're going to need at least 5 movement during the day, so we're going to need 5 movement worth of cards to get in there. And not only that, if we do that, we're going to have to fight a guy who has ice attacks, which means the only thing we can protect ourselves with are with fire or cold fire. He's got defense versus ice, he's got defense versus physical attacks, and he's also going to paralyze us if we don't block, and we definitely don't have the cards for that. And then we have this person, which is the summoner, who is also going to be fortified, so we can't use our ranged attacks against him at all. He's going to summon some random creature to fight us, and then when we finally get a chance to fight him and try to defeat him, he's got physical resistance, which is going to make him even harder to defeat. So having looked at everything that Goldix has, we're going to do a little bit more exploring, and we can do this because we haven't done a non-movement action yet. And remember, you can keep moving in small increments if you like, just as long as you don't do another action of any kind that stops your movement, such as getting the attention of other monsters. Now remember, monsters on the board, marauding monsters, will block you from moving along their borders, but these people living in these buildings live there, and they're not going to attack you unless you give them a reason to do so. So I can move by these guys without forcing them to come out of their keep, come out of their wizard tower, and come and attack me. So we're going to take 2 movement from playing swiftness, which is going to give us the amount of movement we need to move into this grassland space. And now, since it is daytime, we get to reveal what exactly is living inside this keep. And we can decide if we want to try to besiege this keep. Not likely going to happen. So we're going to spend 1 more swiftness card to get 2 more points of movement. And we're going to go ahead and just reveal more of the board and see exactly what we're going to find. And we're going to be pretty happy with the results because we're going to reveal our very first monastery, which means we need to put some extra stuff out on the board. The first thing you do when you reveal a monastery is you're going to take 1 of the cards from the advanced action offer. Now it's going to be a drawn from the deck. You're not going to take one of the revealed cards, and you're going to add it to the unit offer. Now the reason why you're doing that is because you have learned of a monk monastery, and these are monks of an ancient order, and these just happen to be monks of the crushing bolt who have learned the ancient skill of crushing bolt. And if you come visit them, they'll be happy to teach you their skills if you pay the right amount of influence to learn those abilities from them. And of course, you ever forget, 1 of these cards is for the monastery, and it should be the one in the back of the village. Has everything listed there, including how much it costs to purchase that advanced action from the unit offer. And it also is going to tell you that if you want to be really cruel and vindictive, you can break into this monastery, burn it to the ground, fight off their guardians, and possibly find the wonderful artifact that these monks of the ancient order of the crushing bolt have been protecting for all these years. Additionally, we managed to reveal another dungeon, and it's going to be exactly like this dungeon if we move in there. It's a safe spot unless we decide to delve into the dungeon. If we decide to delve in the dungeon, we're going to fight some kind of guardian and get a possible reward. And not only that, we're going to reveal another rampaging enemy rampaging across these lands, begging for us to defeat them, bring the populace more into our sway, and increase our reputation and increase our fame. So now that we see our positioning, we're going to go ahead and discard one more card, again for movement, because we have not done an action yet. It's kind of a waste to burn this card right now, but unfortunately I want to move into the monastery because I want to buy that crushing bolt power, because Goldix is very good about gaining green mana, which is going to be a very powerful siege attack for Goldix. So I'm going to spend the refreshing walk for 2 movement points, which is all it takes to move into this grassland space. I have 1 card left. It's definitely enough to get enough, not enough to get enough influence for me, which, since it costs 6 influence to buy that ability. So I'm going to go ahead and end my turn, return the die to the source. I'm going to discard all the spent cards. I'm also going to discard this card here because my plan for the next round is try to get as much influence as I can, because I want to buy that ability. So I'm going to discard my entire hand. While I'm doing this, I'm going to notify the Erythia player they can start their turn. I don't have any level ups to process. I'm going to simply draw a new hand of 5 cards, figure out what I'm going to do, and then the Erythia player can go ahead and start their turn. The Erythia player is itching for a fight, and they're noticing that they have a couple combat cards if they had the mana to power them, but unfortunately both of their combat cards require white mana to power, and we don't have any. As an option, we could go onto the space, end our turn, and take a white crystal, which might be something we can do. It's something to think about. We could go explore over here, which will allow us to reveal this keep if we wanted to, and we definitely have the movement cards for it. We also have an influence card that we can use if we can possibly stay here. Well, we can't do that because we already have a unit, so that wouldn't work at all. So now the Erythia player needs to make a couple decisions because they have a lot of options open before us right now. The Erythia player decides that they're going to go for some really good positioning and try to open up all their options the best they can. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and spend Crystallize. They're going to take 1 mana for the source for the blue mana. That's going to allow us to take a mana crystal of any color we want, because we use the more powerful ability of Crystallize, which says we can gain a crystal of any color and add it to our inventory. Now, some cards are going to say gain a crystal, some cards are going to say gain a token. The difference is a crystal goes in our inventory and it lasts until we use it. If a card ever tells us to get a token, we're going to gain that token outside of our inventory, and we have to use it before the end of the turn. Otherwise, it's going to deteriorate. It's just temporarily gained mana. It only lasts for your turn. If it's not used, it disappears at the end of your turn. So tokens, end of your turn. Crystals last until you use them. The only problem is you have to be very careful, because you can never have more than 3 crystals of the same color, and that's crystals of the same color in your inventory. If you ever have more than 3 crystals, any additional are automatically tokens. Even if the card tells you to draw a crystal or gain a crystal, it's going to be a token, because you can never have more than 3 crystals of any specific color in your inventory. We've gained a white crystal, so now we can start at least powering one of our swiftness cards, so we're happy. We're going to go ahead and spend our movement card to gain 2 movement. Then we're going to go ahead and play Threaten sideways, so instead of using any abilities from this card, it is now a basic card. We're going to turn to a basic 1 movement. We're going to have a total of 3 movement. Costs 3 movement to move into the forest. We're going to reveal exactly what is guarding this keep, and we're going to have 2 cards left over and decide exactly what we want to do at this point. Now, things just aren't looking too good for our Mage Knights right now. We're running into a lot of monsters who have a lot of resistances, and that is the randomness of the monsters we're going to encounter. Some have resistances and some don't, so it's causing us to make some decisions on the tactics we want to do. I could just rest here, save these 2 cards, and on the next turn, hopefully hope I get enough attack to take this creature out. Since he's physically resistant, I need at least 10 attack to defeat this creature. I can produce 3 plus 2 for my peasants, which would be a total of 5, which is not enough to defeat this creature. So attacking him is pointless. I need at least 5 more attack to take him out. And I don't think I can produce that with only 3 more cards, especially since I need at least 3 movement to enter this keep, since it is in the mountains. So instead of doing what I was originally thinking, and since all I've done so far is movement, I haven't done an action, I'm going to go ahead and spend my last swiftness card for a total of 2 move, to move to this location, and then again spend 2 more movement to go ahead and reveal the next tile, and we're going to figure out exactly what the board's going to look like. Now remember, we have to arrange the tiles, so we're forming a star pattern. So the number in the lower bottom corner is facing the same direction as all the other tiles. And we're going to see that we're going to be revealing another mage tower. We're going to get some rampaging creatures, which is exactly what we were looking for, because these are the easy creatures to level up on at the beginning of the game. And we're also going to go ahead and reveal a new location that we have not encountered yet. We have revealed an ancient ruins, and rumors throughout the lands have told us that these ancient ruins were once protected by 2 powerful monsters, but the rumors across the land say that there's a cache of untold magical power and a spell of ancient legend in these ruins if I can somehow manage to defeat the guardians inside these ruins. Since it is a daytime when we reveal the ruins, we're actually going to reveal exactly what is inside the ruins, and that's what the token says. There's a brown creature, there is a purple creature guarding it, and if we defeat them, we're going to get a spell from the spell offer, and we're going to get 1 of every color of the basic mana, which is going to be white, green, red, and blue. So definitely a really good location to get to. Unfortunately, we have to go through some marauders, we have to go through a mage's tower, and then we have to defeat what's there. So not quite as easy as it looks, but things are definitely looking up for Arythia on her path across the land. The Arythia player is done with her action. She spent all her cards, just needs to return the die to the source, and we now have 1 more burnt out die in the source. Normally now we'd notify the other player they can start their turn since we've reset the source. And we would discard our cards, draw a new hand up of 5 cards. And that's the end of Arythia's turn. We still have not leveled up with Arythia, but we definitely have some great cards coming up. We're going to start doing some damage, and things are definitely looking up for the Arythia player. It's now time for the Goldix player to do exactly what they're hoping they can do if they can get the right cards and take advantage of them. It's now the Goldix player's turn, and what they're going to do is take a very, very quick turn, because what they want is they want to definitely try to purchase this card from the unit offer as the ability from the monastery. And looking at our hand, we didn't get any cards that can give us influence, so it's not what we're ready to do. And since we haven't drawn any influence cards, we know that one of these 2 cards remaining left in our draw pile has to be an influence card. So using that logic, and looking at the fact that the opponent controlling Arythia doesn't have enough cards for us to have to worry about them ending their turn immediately, we're pretty safe, and we're only going to play 1 card, because the rules do say you have to play at least 1 card on your turn, and if you don't, you're forced to discard a card anyways. And since we do want to play one of our cards, we're going to go ahead and play Crystallize, and we're going to power it with the gold mana from the source for the blue powered ability, which is going to allow us to gain a crystal of any color from the supply. We're going to go ahead and take a green crystal, add that green crystal to our inventory. That's all we're going to do for our turn. We're going to re-roll the die, return it to the source, discard the card, announce to the other player they can take their turn, and we're going to draw our hand back up to 5 cards, and hopefully we got an influence card. And it looks like we did, so Goldix is now ready for the next turn. Their turn is over. It's now for Arythia to take her turn. The Arythia player is currently regretting the fact that I don't have 2 red mana, because if we had 2 red mana or access to 2 red mana, we actually got some really good combat cards, especially Arythia's special ability, which gives us fire attack, which we could use powered through red mana, and we could actually enter this keep and take out this creature. Even if we took a little bit of damage, it wouldn't be a big deal to us, because remember, Arythia doesn't mind wound cards, and taking out this creature is going to give us a lot of fame, which would be great to help us level up. Unfortunately, we don't have the mana to power it, so we're going to have to go through a different action. So the Arythia player instead is going to gain some fame by taking out these orcs, which is going to give them some reputation, and it's also going to allow us to open up this mage tower before the day opens, so at least we can see what we're facing later on in the round, and perhaps move us ever so closer to going into these ruins and seeing what kind of creatures we can fight for those wonderful awards in those ruins. So for Arythia, what they're going to do is they're not going to move, and remember the actions are movement and then action. We're bypassing move because we're going to do an action, and we're going to go ahead and attack these orcs. Now it's going to be a pretty quick fight, because remember, combat is range combat, then it's blocking, then it's taking the damage if you don't block it, and then it's attacking the creature back. Well, we're going to go ahead and play the concentration card, take the green mana for its more powerful ability on it, and then we're going to play Battle Versatility just to do a little bit of overkill, just to show you how easy this works for combat if you have the right attacks versus the monsters on the board. So What concentration lets us do is if we power it up with green mana, the next card or whatever card we play to go along with it, we can get the stronger effect of that card +2 to make it even more powerful. So we're playing concentration, get the more powerful effect on battle versatility for the ability to have fire attack of 3, +2 is a total fire ranged attack of 5. So we're going to do 5 points to range attack damage to this creature right here, who only happens to have 3 defense. 5 is more than enough to defeat this creature. He's going to be totally incinerated, destroyed, and obliterated. We still have 3 cards left in our hand, and we're going to be able to level up at least at the end of this turn, which makes the Erythia player very, very happy. And I actually misspoke there. The final effect is still the same, but the attack isn't fired. The ranged attack is non-fire. If I was actually in the melee portion, the attack would be fire, but it's just regular range attack. But it's still 3 range attack, +2 is a total of 5 range attack. Still more than enough to obliterate this orc. And it's enough for Erythia to finish his combat without taking any damage. And unfortunately, since we've already taken an action, we can't move any further, even though we happen to have some cards we use for movement, so we can't do that. That pretty much ends the turn for the Erythia player, since they don't have any cards that they really want to play, even though technically they could, but none of them are going to be really efficient for us. So we're going to go ahead and announce the end of our turn, send the mana die back to the source, discard the cards that we spent on this round, then we're going to draw our hand back up to 5 cards, which draws the last 2 cards into our hand. We have a total of 5 cards in our hand. That's the end of the Erythia player's turn. She now gets to process her level up, and then Goldix can take his turn. So for the Erythia players level up, they're going to gain 2 fame. Their fame is currently at 1. 1 + 2 is 3. Plus they're going to get the extra bonus because we're doing a Blitz campaign, or Blitz Conquest, so we're now at 4 on fame. We're level 2, which means we are leveling up, so we get to take 2 of our abilities, figure out which one we want to keep as a permanent ability added on to Erythia. And looks like Erythia's best special ability just popped up. Although actually these are both very good abilities, so it's going to be a tough choice. And then we have to take one of these cards to add to the top of our draw deck, which means I actually did this out of order. I shouldn't have drawn my new hand yet, so let me go ahead and take that back really quick, because I wouldn't have actually drawn those cards since I'm leveling up. I'm actually going to take one of those cards in my hand, which will be leaving me 1 card left in my draw pile. Back on point, I need to figure out which one of these I want, and then pick one of these to add to the top of my deed deck. The Erythia player sees a pretty mean combination available for them to purchase right now, and depends on just how mean they want to be to the other player is going to decide what exactly special abilities they're going to take. This special ability is going to allow them to play any wound card in their hand sideways for 2 points. That can be 2 points influence, 2 attack, 2 block, or 2 movement, which already allows Erythia to use wounds for any of her own needs, which is already pretty powerful. The other thing we can do is we can and this is once per turn, so we can use this pretty much all the time, which is pretty cool. The other one is it's going to allow us to take 1 wound and trash it, and then take another wound and put it in another player's hand, making their life pretty darn miserable and clogging up an opponent's hand. The really cool thing is the advanced action offer has a card in it that allows Erythia to, if she takes it, to take wounds into her hand. So combining these abilities with that card are going to be pretty darn disastrous or devious, depending on exactly which one she decides to take. And since I'm just playing 2 players, I'm not being devious like it would be when I was playing with my regular play group where we're pretty much cutthroat. I'm going to go ahead and be nice to the Goldix player and take the ability that allows me to play Wound Sideways. And that's going to be a permanent ability that I can use once per turn. This is going to be sent to the unit offer, or the community offer, and then we're going to go ahead and take the Blood Rage. It's going to be added to the top of our deck. We're going to fill up the advanced action offer, and then we're going to draw our cards in our hand, and we're going to draw the card that we just took. Plus we're going to gain Promise, leaving 1 card left in our hand. We now have 5 cards in our hand, 1 card left in our deed deck. It's the end of Erythia's turn. It's now the Goldix player's turn. Although before I forget, we do get 1 point of reputation since we did defeat a marauding creature. So before I forget that, need to do that. Now we can go ahead and take Goldix's turn. Now for the Goldix player, we already know what we want to do is we want to do our best to get this Crushing Bolt. Now remember, it's going to cost us influence of 6. Luckily we're at +1 to our influence that we use for our actions on the turn. So what we need to do is we need to somehow manage to get a total of 5 influence. If we can do so, we can go ahead and buy that ability and add it to our deed deck. It's actually pretty easy for us to do this. We're going to go ahead and play a card called Willed Focus. And what it's going to do for its powered up ability is it's going to allow us to play another card for its maximum effect. And not only do we get the maximum effect, we actually get a bonus to its maximum effect. So then we're going to go ahead and play the influence card with it. So we're going to get a total of 4 influence, plus 3 is a total of 7 influence, plus 1 for our reputation. So we actually have 8 influence to go ahead and spend in the monastery. The Crushing Bolt only costs us 6, so we're going to go ahead and purchase that. Add that to our D deck, and now remember, anything in the unit offer is not refilled, even though it's an advanced action, we're not refilling it. And since we do have 2 influence left, we're going to go ahead and play 1 card sideways to get a 3rd point of influence. We're going to hire the herbalist. Since the herbalist can be hired at a monastery, we're going to add them to our first unit that Goldix has already attained. We've done all of our actions that we want to do on this turn. We can't do any movements, even though we have movement cards in our hand. For the simple fact, remember, it's movement then action, and since we performed an action, there are no movements allowed for us this turn. That's going to end our turn. We're going to go ahead and discard all the used cards we use this turn. Return the mana die to the source. Our turn is going to be over. It's now the turn of the Arithia player, and see what she decides to do. For the Arithia player's turn, we're going to go ahead and see exactly what it looks like when we start attacking the keeps and the wizard towers and other buildings that belong to the people of this land, because we got some pretty powerful cards, and we're going to go ahead and abuse the heck out of these cards. First thing we're going to do is we're going to play March for 2 points of movement. Then we're going to play Tranquility sideways for a 3rd point of movement. It takes 3 movement points to move into a hill terrain. This keep happens to be in a hill terrain, so it's going to cost us 3 movement points to move into that location. As soon as we move in that location to assault that location, we are going to lose 1 point of reputation with the people because they're going to not like our behavior. And then we're going to start a combat with this creature. Now this creature has physical resistance, so that means all my physical attacks are going to do half the damage. But this creature only does 2 points of damage to me, and it's worth 4 fame if I manage to defeat this creature. So the combat phases go ranged attack, block, or take the damage if you don't block, and then attack the creature back. So the first thing that's going to happen is range attacks with me versus the golem. I have no range attack, so we're going to bypass that. The next thing that's going to happen is the golem's going to attack me with its 2 strength. I'm going to block that with a rage card, which is worth 2 points of block. So we're going to skip the damage phase because the creature is not going to do any damage to me. And then I'm going to go ahead and spend Blood Rage. I'm going to use the gold mana as a red mana source. That means I'm going to either take 4 attack, or I can take a wound, which I will happily take a wound. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my special ability that I already have. I can play any wound card sideways for 2 points of one of the special things: attack, block, influence, or movement. So now I have a total of 9 attack, plus 2 is a total of 11 attack. Even halved, since all my physical attacks versus this creature are going to be inefficient, so I'm going to do half damage. I have a total of 11 points of damage. Halved is still 5. We round down, which is going to be enough to defeat this creature. This creature is defeated. I've won the battle versus this creature, and I'm going to gain some experience. I'm going to gain some leveling up. And not only that, I can use the benefits of this keep, because I now own this keep, and it's going to give me some benefits every round as long as I'm in the keep or next to the keep at the start of my turn. That's pretty much it for the Arithia player's turn. They're going to go ahead and process their level up, but before so the other player can take their turn, they're going to roll the mana die in the source. They still have 1 card left in their hand to use at a future turn. They're going to gain 4 fame for defeating this creature, which means they're going to go from 4 fame, they're going to go all the way up to 8, and since they're crossing a line and we're playing the blitz scenario, we're going to get 1 bonus fame just for doing that. We're at a total of 9 fame, and since we have leveled up, we now have 1 extra unit that we can control. Our stats have gone up. We now have 3 armor. Still can only have 5 cards in our hand, so now we need to discard the rest of our cards that we used. This is going to go in our discard pile since it is a wound card that we now have. Even though Arithia can abuse the heck out of these wound cards for lots of nice benefits, as you just saw. Again, as I said in the beginning, Arithia loves wounds. They give her benefits, so she definitely doesn't mind getting the wounds. This is going to go away. Again, Arithia now controls this keep. That's the end of our turn. We have 1 card left in our hand, so we need to draw up. Unfortunately, we only have 1 card left in our draw pile. We are done with the Arithia player's turn. It's now the Goldix player's turn to figure out exactly what they want to do with the remaining cards in their hand. The first thing the Goldix player is going to do is they're going to play Crushing Bolt, which allows them to gain a green crystal to their inventory. or we could play for higher ability if we happen to be in combat, but unfortunately we're not close enough to do anything with that, so we're going to use it for its lesser ability to gain 1 green crystal. We're then going to play Mana Draw, power it with this 1 white crystal, and then we're going to turn this mana crystal, this mana die in the source to green, which is going to give us 2 tokens, not crystals. It's going to give us 2 tokens that we can use for this round only. So we got to make sure we don't put them on our inventory so we don't confuse them. We now have 2 mana tokens, and this die is not going to be re-rolled. That's the special ability of the Mana Draw card. We're then going to spend 1 of these green tokens to power March, which is going to give us 4 movement. Then we're going to play Tranquility sideways for 5th point of movement. We're going to spend all 5 of those movement to move into the swamp. Swamps cost 5 movement to move into. So we're in good positioning for the next turn. We're done with our round. We're going to re-roll the die for the source. We're going to discard all of our cards. The green player is completely out of cards in their hand. The Goldix player is completely out of cards in their hand, completely out of cards in their D deck. So next round, they are going to have to announce the end of the turn, and since we didn't use this token, it's discarded, not used, but we still have 2 crystals in our inventory. Goldix's turn is over. We now get to come to Arithia's turn, who gets to take advantage of the unit offer before the end of the round. The Arithia player is in a keep right now, so they can hire any creatures or any units that can be hired in a keep, and there's only 1 unit who can be hired in a keep right now. That's the Utum Swordsman. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend influence. We're going to power it with a white crystal for 4 influence. We're then going to play Mana Draw sideways for 5th point of influence. And since our reputation is still at the +1 level, we now have effectively 6 points of influence. We're going to use all 6 points of influence to hire these Utum Swordsmen. And since we are a high enough level that we can have 2 units that we control, we now gain these Utum Swordsmen. That's all of our cards played. We don't have any cards in our draw pile or our D deck. We don't have any cards in our hand. That's the end of the Arithia player's turn. We are completely done. The Goldix player has no cards in their hand, no cards in their D deck. They are required to announce them at the end of the turn. They're going to do so. The Arithia player is in the same boat. They can't do anything for their turn. That's going to end the turn for both of our players and the round for both of our players. It's now time to start the night phase, or the second round of the 4 rounds for this Blitz Conquest campaign that we're playing through. So the first thing we need to do before we start the new round is we need to flip the night day board over to the night phase, because we're now playing the night round, which means the movement costs are changed. And now if we start getting spells and we have black mana, we can power their more powerful abilities. We then need to reset the source. Remember, at least half of them have to be non-gold or black mana. We are having 1 black, 1 gold, perfectly fine. Gold mana cannot be used at night, so we set out to the side so we don't make any mistakes right there. Then we need to refresh the unit offer. All units that are currently available are going to disappear. We're not going to have any more. We're going to draw new units based on the amount of players +2. And again, since we're playing a Blitz Conquest, we're going to get 1 extra unit in the unit offer. We're going to refresh the advanced offer deck. So we're going to take the bottom advanced offer, advanced action, slide them all down, reveal a new advanced action. The bottom spell is also going to disappear. We're going to slide down the spells, draw a new spell in the spell offer, and then we're going to look to see if there's any monasteries revealed. And remember, we have revealed 1 monastery, so that's going to add a new advanced action to the unit offer that anybody can buy if they go to the monastery and purchase it for 6 influence. After we refresh everything, all the players get to refresh any special abilities that they use that were 1-time use per round. The old tactic cards are going to be gotten rid of. The new tactic cards are going to come out that players are going to get a chance to go through in just a moment. Each one of the players shuffles their D deck. It's going to form their new draw pile. Players draw a new hand based on what level they're at. Since our players are still drawing only 5 cards, they're each going to draw 5 cards to form their new hand. After all the players have drawn a new D deck and they have a new hand and they're ready to play and all their powers have been reset, all their units have been reset, and since we didn't use any of our units, we know our units are going to be reset pretty easily. Once we've done all that, it is now time for the players to pick their tactics, and we're going to pick tactics based on whoever is the lowest on the fame track. So, since Goldix Goldix has the least amount of fame. He only has 4 fame versus Arythea, who currently has 9. That means Goldix gets to take the Knight Tactics cards, go through all these, pick whichever tactic they want, and they're going to pass these over to whoever has the next lowest fame. If there's ever a tie, you use a prior turn's order to break the ties. Whoever's lowest on the prior turn is going to break the tie. Once we decide whatever tactics cards we've had, we're going to figure out which is going to be the new turn order from the new round, and then we continue on from there. So starting with the Goldix player, they're going to go ahead and take the tactics card called Preparation, which is allow them to go through their D deck, pick any card they want and add it to their hand. And the reason why they're doing that is because we got a lot of cards that we don't want right now. And of course, you know, we could make them work, but we're looking for one specific card to make things a little bit easier for us because we want to eventually work towards that tomb right there because we know there's some good treasures in there. Then the Arythea player is going to get the Sparing Power card, and the reason why they're taking that is they want to start building up a whole bunch of power so they can trounce through this whole area and get these nice rewards that are set up and just begging to be conquered by the Arythea player. So since Goldix used Preparation, they get to go through their D deck, pick any one card they want out of their D deck and add it to their hand. So we're going to go ahead and do that really quickly. The Goldix player is going to go ahead and take Will Focus as the card they want to add to their hand. Then they're going to go ahead and shuffle their D deck. Once their D deck is shuffled, they're going to go ahead and end that part of their tactics. We're now going to move over to Arythea, whose card doesn't have any special effects they need to worry about now. So now that everybody's done with their preparation, we simply just need to reorder the turn order based on tactics cards, and we're going to see the turn order is going to stay just the same because Goldix has a 5 tactic. Arythea has a 6 tactic, so the turn order is going to stay just the same. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Goldix player, who's going to take their turn right now. First thing they are going to do is they're going to use their Herbalist for the special ability that says gain 1 green mana token. Now remember, this is a token, not a crystal, so it does not go to our inventory. We have to use it right now, which we are more than happy to do. We're going to use it to power the march, which is going to give us a total of 4 movement, and we're going to intentionally move in a way that's going to force these orcs to come and attack us because we moved along their borders from one location along their borders to another location on the borders within 1 movement space. So they are immediately going to attack us, and we are now in battle with these creatures. So the first thing that's going to happen when we go into battle with these creatures, we remember range attack, block, take the damage if we don't block, and then we're going to have the chance to fight back. Well, unfortunately, we don't have any range attack, so the next thing we need to do is we need to block. And looking at our hand of cards and looking at the strategy we have, we are actually not going to block, so that means we move to the third phase of combat where we get to take damage. Now looking at these Wolf Riders, we see that these Wolf Riders are going to do 3 points of damage, and they are swift, which is the main reason why we didn't block, because we would have had to need to stop them. We would have needed 6 points of block to stop them, which we definitely did not have in our hand. So now we need to take the damage. So our armor level is 2 since we're still only 2nd level. So we need to take the amount of damage it's going to take. So they do 3 points of damage, and we're going to subtract 2, which is our armor, from the damage. And this 1 wound is going to go into our hand, and we still have 1 point to account for. So that 1 minus our 2 armor is going to be -1. So we now have 2 wound cards in our hand. And unfortunately, it's what we need to do. But luckily, we planned for this well in advance, and we're going to be able to get rid of these wound cards. But I'll show you how that's going to work in just a moment. Now the damage has been resolved, we move on to the chance where we get to fight back and retaliate against these creatures. And they have a defense of 4. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play Determination, which is going to give us 2 attack in this case. We're then going to play Refreshing Walk sideways for 1 more attack to bring our attack to 3. And then we're going to go ahead and play Crystallize sideways, which is going to give us a total of 4 attack. 4 attack is enough to defeat these creatures. They have been defeated. They're going to give us 3 fame, so we're going to gain 3 points on the fame track. Not quite enough to get the level up we wanted, but it's still better than where we were standing before. That's going to end the battle. These creatures are defeated. We're not going to have to worry about processing the level up, so I'm just going to take those off the board right now. And while we've done a movement and we've also done an action, our turn isn't quite over. If we happen to have any cards we can still take care of, and we definitely have some cards we can take care of, which are going to help us very, very quickly. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and spend the Tranquility for its top unpowered ability, which allows us to heal 1 or draw a card. Well, we're going to choose Heal. And anytime you healed, you get to throw away the wound card, so it's not going to go in the discard pile of our D deck. It's going to return to the wound pile. And then we're going to announce the end of our turn. And since we're ending our turn in a magical glade, magical glades are really cool. They allow you to heal one wound, whether it's in your hand, or if that wound happens to be in your discard pile. That's the only way you can heal out of your discard pile. Normal healing only allows you to heal wounds in your hand or wounds on your units. Magical glades allow you to heal wounds on yourself, which means in your hand, or allow you to heal wounds out of your discard pile. So that's the minor difference between magical glades and actually healing abilities. Anyways, we've announced the end of our turn, so we get to throw away a second wound. So we managed to defeat a creature, end the turn without any wounds in our hand, gained a little bit of fame, and we still have one card left in our hand. Our turn is over. We don't have any level ups to process, so we're okay with that. So we need to draw our hand back up to a total of 5 cards. We're down to 1, so we get to draw 4 more cards. Add those cards to our hand. That's the end of the turn. We didn't use any mana, so we don't have to re-roll any mana in the source. We can let Arythia go ahead and take her turn and see exactly what her plans are for her round. And of course, before I do that, before I forget, we also do get 1 fame on the one level of the reputation board because we did defeat a marauding creature. We're now at +2 on our reputation. For the Arythia player's turn, they're going to take some really aggressive play and start being pretty darn aggressive because they want to level up. And that's just the tactics I'm trying to take because I'm trying to show you a wide variety of exactly how Mage Knight plays. That's my goal with these gameplay videos. So what the Arythia player is going to do is they're going to go ahead and they're going to besiege this mage tower. Since it happens to be in a hills, it's going to cost us a total of 3 movement to enter that space. So we're going to go ahead and spend the stamina card for a total of 2 movement. Then we're going to use the peasant's special ability for an additional 2 move, which is going to give us a total of 4 movement points. We're now going to besiege this mage's tower. And since we're attacking the locals, our reputation is again going to go down so people start realizing that Arythia is definitely not a person for the people. So now we are in combat with this creature, and we're going to see that this creature is a summoner or an illusionist. He's actually an illusionist, sorry. And what the illusionist is going to do is when we fight him, he's going to summon a creature when we get to the block and the attack phase if I don't manage to defeat him. Now, since we're attacking a mage's tower, he is automatically fortified, so I need to have siege attacks only if I want to use any kind of attacks during the ranged combat. I don't have any siege attacks, so we're going to go ahead and bypass that immediately. And then he's going to go ahead and summon a creature, which is going to be an illusion to decide what kind of attacks I need to withstand. So we're going to see that the summoned illusion is going to be a Minotaur. Now, Minotaurs are extremely powerful. They have the ability Brutal, which means if I don't block their damage, I'm going to take twice the amount of damage. So if I don't block him, I'm going to take 10 points of damage, which is going to be enough to completely knock me out and force me to discard all of my cards. So this is actually going to be a very, very tricky fight. So I need to play very smart here or I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. So I get to the block phase. This is definitely a creature I want to block, especially all 5 points of that damage. So I'm going to take the blue mana die from the source, use it to power Determination, which is going to give me 5 block, which is going to stop this creature's attack, so I'm safe. I'm not going to take any damage from it, so we don't have to worry about the attack phase. This is going to be discarded, and now I need to find a way to do at least 6 points of damage, physical, or find another source of damage, because this creature has physical resistance, which means all my physical attacks are going to do half damage. So I need fire attacks, cold fire attacks, or I need to do at least 6 points of physical damage to destroy this illusionist. So since I don't have any elemental attacks at all, I need to figure out a way to do a total of 6 points of damage, or otherwise I've just wasted my time besieging this tower, taking a reputation hit, because even if you fail the assault, your reputation still goes down, so multiple sieges, multiple failures can definitely drop your reputation if you're not careful. Luckily, it looks like the cards are going to be in my favor. I'm going to go ahead and use my Utman Swordsman for their total attack 3. I'm then going to use Improvisation, and I'm going to discard Swiftness as the discardable card you have to use when you play Improvisation. That's going to be a total of 6 attack. I actually still have a card left in my hand, so I'm doing A-okay there. These illusionists have been defeated. I have besieged this wizard's tower successfully. I put my banner there to let everybody know I now own this mage's tower. It is now mine. I now have the special benefits of this mage's tower. And I'm also going to gain some fame for defeating this enemy. My turn is over. I'm going to return the mana die to the source. That's going to be a gold mana, so now we have another depleted mana die in the source. These cards are all going to be discarded, and I need to do something really quickly that I forgot to do at the start of my turn because I was such in a rush to show you this combat. I apologize. I had the Sparing Power tactic card. I'm going to go ahead and use it to draw a card from the top of my D deck, which what Sparing Power tells me to do. And I'm going to put it underneath the Sparing Power tactic card, and it's now saved there for later use if I want to. And now we're going to go ahead and finish our round out by discarding the cards that we did use. And we're going to go ahead and process our fame that we're going to gain. We're going to gain 4 fame for defeating this creature. So we're going to go from 9 all the way up to 13 fame. Not quite enough to level up, but still definitely we're doing pretty darn good because we have now conquered 2 locations in this land, and the Erythia player is looking pretty darn happy with everything that's going on. The Erythia player is very happy, especially since the fact that she's conquered a Mage's Tower, which when you conquer a Mage's Tower, you do get a nice benefit. You actually get to pick a spell from the spell offer, and you're going to gain that spell as a new ability. And from now on, you can also hire units here. You can also purchase spells here. And not only that, the really, really cool thing, and I'm speeding this up because this video is running long and I'm about to cut it short here very, very quickly. The really cool thing is since I'm ending my turn next to a keep, I get to actually draw some extra cards in my hand. Because when you end your turn next to a keep, and if you ever forget, if it's a keep you own and you're either inside the keep or you're next to the keep when you end your turn, you draw 1 extra card for every keep that you actually own. So if I happen to own 4 keeps and I end my turn here, I normally draw 5 cards. Plus 4 more for all the keeps. I'd actually start the next turn with 9 cards, which is going to be a heck of a lot of advantage, so I can start terrorizing. I'm going to use the word terrorizing because Erythia hasn't really been a nice person yet. Start terrorizing this area and start really dominating this side of the board. So again, the Erythia player is doing really good, but Goldix isn't out yet. He's starting to move in. Has a nice dungeon access to. There's another monastery, or you return to the monastery. By that ability, things are not looking bad for the Goldix player. Neither one of our players are out for the count. Things are still looking very, very good for both of our players. I think I've shown you just enough of Mage Knight for you to get the idea of exactly how Mage Knight plays and allow you to make a decision if this is a game you are definitely interested in. There's only a couple things I haven't shown you. I'm just going to go over those very, very quickly. The first thing are the cities. Whenever you assault a city, every single city has a special ability that's going to match that specific city, and all 4 of the cities have different special abilities. There's a chart in the book. You can look it up very, very quickly. It tells you exactly what's going to happen to all the Guardians. On top of that, every single city has a little one of these HeroClix dials. There's going to be a number next to it that's going to basically be the level of that specific city. Now, these dials normally turn pretty darn easily. I got lotion in my hands here, so my hands are slipping. Do it the easy way here. These dials do turn easily. Don't think they're bad turning. It's just me being a problematic here. But you're going to have levels on every one of these cities, and the level of the city is going to judge what kind of guardians are on the city. If you look at each one of these, you're going to see some circles that are colored. That's going to tell you exactly which kind of guardians are protecting that city at that time. Now, since we're doing a level 3 city, we just simply look and see that there's 2 white circles guarding the city. So when we attack and besiege it, we're going to draw 2 counters from the white circles. If we happen to besiege a really high level city, such as a level 11 or level 12 city, we're going to see that we're going to have 4 white guardians, and we're also going to have a gray guardian to have to go through and defeat. And if we manage to defeat all these guardians of the city, that's going to be one heck of a challenge to do on a one go. So we're probably going to take multiple assaults on the city. But if we do, we're going to gain a heck of a lot of benefits and bonuses, and we're going to be able to use the special ability of the city if we happen to conquer it. There's only 3 other things I haven't shown you about Mage Knight, and I'm not going to include them in this video, and I've already explained why. The first one is I'm not showing you the dummy player, because the dummy player is what you use when you're playing either fully cooperative or when you're playing the game solo, and I'm actually going to throw those rules in when I show you the solo Mage Knight video I'm going to throw up after I'm done with the 3 video series, you know, the tutorial, the sample gameplay, and then the final review. The next thing I didn't throw in here is I didn't throw in player versus player combat. The reason why I'm not doing that is I don't want to confuse the game. It does make combat a little bit different. And there's no reason to confuse the things the first couple times you're trying to learn how to play the game. And the final thing is the cooperative assault. You can actually, as a group of Mage Knights, cooperatively assault one of these cities, which is what you're going to have to do when you start fighting these higher level cities like the 8, 9, and level 10 cities. Luckily, when you're fighting the low level, level 3 cities that you're going to be fighting in the Blitz Conquest, which is the scenario I showed you, you can pretty much do it without any assistance. So I'm also not throwing that in there because I don't want to add any confusion. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to wrap everything up with my final review of Mage Knight, the board game.